if you're an online coach and you really want to increase your wealth, it's one thing to grow your coaching business, but you also need to know how to invest your money so it can multiply over months and years ahead. This is a huge proponent of what's worked for me. This isn't financial advice. I'm not a registered financial advisor, but anytime I ever mention this in our masterminds, our in-person events, or the odd email that I've put out and it's been somewhat the topic, people always ask me, can you please create some videos around how you invest your money? And so in this video, I'm going to share what I do. It's not financial advice, but I'm going to share exactly what I do, from making money inside the business right through to where I allocate every single penny of my investments. And if you've got no idea who I am, I'm Shoney Mac, and over the last decade, I have helped thousands of coaches scale their coaching businesses with not a one-size-fits-all, but with cherry-picked ad systems that perfectly suit their business, their niche, and their price point. But that isn't the point of this video. However, if you're new here and you think you'd benefit from this type of content, or Facebook ads, or growing your coaching business in general, then hit like and subscribe and comment and all that jazz that Facebook absolutely loves. But into the video. So this is going to be 5 steps of wealth creation, okay? So 5 steps, well, that is 5 or an S. 5 or an S. So let's do 5 steps of... See this whiteboard? This is an amazing way to showcase how terrible I am at spelling. I actually fear what some of these videos are actually going to show in relation to the way that I spell. But anyway, and the way that I write, which is actually worse than my 19-month-old son. Anyway, so 5 steps of wealth creation. So the very first thing here, really important before we go into where I allocate money, is everybody needs to take this into account. I still take it into account as well, which is grow revenue, okay? We can't invest money that we do not have. Okay, if you have a coaching business and you might be making 5K a month or 7K a month or 10K a month inside your business, you still need to scale it further than that in almost all cases to be able to have really significant profits after mortgage and lifestyle and family and all of those things are taken care of. And of course, tax as well. So you have to scale the revenue to release the profitability to occur so that you have an allocation that can go to your investments on a monthly basis, okay? So if you really want to put the foot on the gas, you want to grow your revenue. And in terms of the urgency around this is a big one that I shared with my systems of scalers when we were in Glasgow for this event. This was the Miami Mastermind. And we were talking about 2 scenarios. I showed them the maths of investing 25K into index funds at 1K a year over the next 25 years versus putting 25K in this year and allowing the full 25 to compound over the next 25 years. It was like, I think it was like 2.5 times the outcome on the other side. So that is where the importance of putting the foot on the gas now to grow your coaching business, to release the profit that can then go into investments, is so important. It's better than nothing. Putting $1,000 a year into investments is better than nothing. And it's something that you should 100% do. And, if it's S&P 500, on average over the last 100 years, those numbers would compound and double your money every 7 years, I think it is. So it's worth doing. Of course it is. But really growing your revenue is going to make you, or put you in a position where you might be able to put 5K or 10K or 15K or 25K per month into these investments, and think about how that can compound over 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, to put you in a position where the type of wealth that you actually accumulated after tax versus what you actually have access to on the other side it's going to be incredible. However, something else to think about here, I know it's not really a tangent, it's kind of the point of the video. Another thing to think about is when you put investments in now and you don't touch them for 25 years, you don't just get incredible gains. You get long-term capital gains. So when you actually take that money out, first of all, you only get taxed, of course, on the profits, but you don't pay the going rate for your tax. You don't pay in the UK 45% on those gains. You pay around 21% if you're in the UK or in the US. Long-term capital gains, things that have been invested for more than 365 days, have a lower tax rate. Okay, so take that into account as well when we're looking at not just growing your wealth significantly, but when you actually take money out of it, it's taxed at a much lower rate, so you keep more of it as well. Okay, so the first step is growing revenue. The second step is grow profits. Okay, so the reason that I need to point this out is because so many coaches do these the other way around. They try and grow their profits before growing their revenue. So they have a business that's 3K a month or 4K a month or 5K a month. And instead of looking at how can I get to 10K months? What do I need to do to get to 20K months? What do I need to get to 50K months? They think, okay, I've got a 4K a month coaching business and the net profit right now is 2K. How can I get it to 2.2K? Where can I find something that I can cost cut? Rather than saying, well, if I go from 4K in my business to 10K a month inside my business, I've just opened up 6K of additional revenue and potentially entirely profit on the other side as well, okay? So grow revenue first and then focus on optimizing for profits second. And that does not mean that I think that anybody should have a 20K a month coaching business and not be making profit. I just mean that in terms of what is the most important steps, this is always step one and this becomes step two, okay? And number 3 here is that we have to optimize for tax, okay? And so what I have found from moving to the US and having a completely different tax code, there wasn't really many things that you could do in the UK. It's like there's like 3 things that you can do to optimize for tax in the UK. In the US, there's quite a lot of things that are there, that are available to everybody, that are, at the end of the day, tax code is there to incentivize you. It's like things that the government wants you to do. They are going to incentivize you with tax cuts and different things. So electric vehicles is one that's actually, I think, in the UK as well, in the US. In the US, you can actually rent your house to yourself 14 days of the year. So for instance, right now, Ryan flying over from Ireland to come here, everybody's out of the house and we're using the house for filming and creating a lot of content. That means that this is one of those 14 days that I can allocate to renting the house to myself. And that allows a tax deduction, a business expense, and then it's also money that comes into your personal account tax-free. Okay, so there's lots of things that you can do with tax. Again, I'm not going to go into these things. I'm not a tax advisor, but it's something you need to think about. Okay, if you want to maximize the amount of money that you can put into investments, you have to not be paying the tax that you don't owe. That's it. It's not that you need to be doing gray area things. It's just like, just don't pay the tax that you don't owe. With ChatGPT, for instance, and I'm not saying ChatGPT should be your final place to look for tax advice, but my goodness, with the right questions, the amount of things that can come to your attention as opportunities that you can then speak to your accountant about for verification, you'll find things that you just never knew were even there. And this is definitely something to think about. The number 4 here is buckets. So buckets is a concept that personally I took from the book, The Richest Man in Babylon. It's an amazing book. I think everybody should read it. Anybody who came into Systems of Scale with me over the last 3 years, I actually sent it to them in the post because I know these coaches are all doing at least 6 figures. Most of them are doing multi-6, deep multi-6 or 7+. And it's really important that they're thinking about everything that we're doing inside this video, right? Really important that they're not just being lifestyle creeps, having, 50K a month coming into their life and finding ways to spend 50K. They need to be thinking about how they create buckets so they can find the money to put into investments wisely. The bucketing system is where you create multiple buckets and you make your money non-emotional. And so with that, it might be that 25% goes to rent or mortgages and things of that nature. 15% goes to food and this, that, and the other. 25% goes to lifestyle, family outings, and holidays and things of that nature. And then finally, you might say, okay, I don't know what the numbers are here, but let's just say it's 35 or 40% is left. That 40% all goes into investments, okay? And once you have that bucketing system, it makes it very easy to not be emotional at different times and instead just go, this is what holidays look like. This is what spending on ourselves looks like. It means that in an opposite way, you might just not feel bad about spending money on yourself as well. Maybe that's a good thing here because it's non-emotional and that money is allocated to lifestyle and whatever that you like to do as hobbies. But the really big thing is that you start to have an allocation for investments. It's not well, I'll see if there's anything there at the end of the month. I'll just do my usual spending. And, if you go from making 10K a month in your coaching business to 50K a month in your coaching business, you can feel so wealthy that nothing feels like an expense. You buy cars that are way over the profit that you've made in the last 6 months, but it didn't feel like anything because you're the person that makes 50K a month inside your business. You need to think about this. The bucketing system stops this happening. And so with the bucketing system, you can have your allocation to investments, okay? And these buckets, as you start to grow, will change over time. So if you have 25K a month coming into your coaching business as profit, if you go to 100K a month as profit inside your coaching business, you're going to have the opportunity to adjust the buckets. You're probably going to take lifestyle, etc., and take it down because it's only a percentage of 4 times the amount of money. And you might increase the amount of money that can go into investments. But that takes me to number 5, which is to invest. Yeah, exactly. This is what I'm talking about with my spelling and my writing. It's absolutely tragic. But I'll show you what I do. So I do about 10%, 20%, 30%, and 40%. Does that come out? Yep, that's 100. Right. So we've got 100% there. The one thing I'm good at is simple maths. Writing, spelling, grammar, things like that, not so much. So 10%. So 10% goes into crypto. And this is not a crypto bro presentation here by any means. However, this is here as a direct allocation because at the end of the day, over the last, I think, 3 years, well, actually, if you take a long term as well, a longer term view, then I think it's even more impressive, even with the massive crashes taken into account if you didn't sell. Over the last 3 years, I think crypto massively outperformed what has been an amazing market for the last 2.5 or 3 years as well, okay? But anyway, 10% crypto, that's the type of money that I want that significant gain that can occur with something like this. But if it goes to 0, I'm not going to cry about it, okay? It is what it is, and it's something that I'm willing to do, especially at my age. You might have to think about your allocation based on your age as well. If I was 19 years old and starting a coaching business and it became very successful very quickly, I would probably be doing 20% here or 30% because if it goes well, it's going to go really well. If it doesn't go well, then I can always make that money back and more, and I've still got 80% in other places. Okay, but anyway, 10% for me is crypto, 20% is property. So we've got some rental properties, and rental properties are an absolute nightmare in my opinion. Maybe a video for another day, but everybody's up to date with their payments, so it is what it is and it's fine. Property gives you a few different things. It allows you to, of course, make semi-passive money on a monthly basis. It's actually not too much, but it's there. The bigger thing here is equity, because somebody else is paying down the mortgage over time, and you're doing it at a profit, so you're not paying down that mortgage at all. Number 3, if you're in the US, there's significant tax benefits, so you can use depreciation, so that any money that you do make from the property is usually, unless you've got an amazing return, it's going to be tax-free because of depreciation. And then number 4 is that when you take out a loan, when you take out a mortgage, when you take out a remortgage, that money is actually tax-free, okay? Now, I'm not a financial advisor, so in the UK specifically, I don't know what the laws are here, but in the US, they've got something called step up in basis, which is essentially that if I have rental properties and I live till I'm 100 years old, okay? So over the next 64 years, I hold on to all of those rental properties. And every 10 years I remortgage and pull out 300,000. That 300,000 is tax-free. And similarly, because somebody's always paying down the mortgage more and then there's more in the pot, the 10 years later to do another remortgage. When I pass away, my son will inherit the property and he will only pay tax on not the price that I paid for the house and what it's worth now. It gets revalued at point of death, okay, to be sinister. So again, not tax advice, not personal advice. Take this as I'm spitting complete lies here because I am not a financial advisor and this is a pretty financial video. But anyway, that's something to consider and to check with your accountant. So property can be really good. Number 3 here is 30% and 40%. And for me, this kind of switches. So I'm going to say what it is right now and what it probably should be for other people, but not financial advice, right? So with the 30%, for me, this is S&P 500 or other index funds, okay? So the S&P 500 is the 500 biggest companies by market cap in the US specifically. It is your Disneys, your Nikes, your Adidas, Nvidia, Amazon, a lot of household names are within there. And it's one of those things where over the last, I think, 110 years, it's averaged around a 10% gain per year. So it's not the type of thing where you make millions overnight, but it is the type of place where over the last 110 years, including world wars, market crashes, and all sorts, it has always rebounded and averaged 10% gain on the other side, okay? So with that type of thing, you can have the certainty that, that every 7 years, the money that was in there is going to double. It's because that's how the compounding effect works of 10%. Or thereabouts. So about every 7 years, your money doubles. So if this is a longer term thing for you and you're continuously putting money in, then this really compounds into money that can make a lot of money. It will all be long-term gains. So the taxation is 20-21% if you're in the UK or the US. And it's also, again, I don't want to use the word safe, but out of everything that you could do, it's pretty much, other than bonds, it's the safest, okay? And it's because if Disney went out of business today, you might go, oh my goodness, Disney's in the S&P 500. There's 499 other companies propping it up. And so you might see the S&P 500 go down by 1.5% that day, but the next day, Nvidia earnings are out, and suddenly the S&P 500 goes up 2.2%, and you're up even though Disney is out. I don't think Disney's going out of business, and I live in Orlando of all places, and I'm an annual Disney pass holder, and I go twice a week. That's all right. That's all right, by the way. That is all, because I don't go on my own, and that is what makes this okay. I go with my wife and my son, so I'm not even a Disney adult. But anyway, 40% goes into, there's not space for this, but individual stocks, okay? And again, if you were much older than I am, then you probably wouldn't take any risks like this, and you probably wouldn't take many risks like this either, and you would probably live in this area and maybe an allocation to bonds instead. But for me personally, at 34, I'll be 35 this year, for me, individual stocks give me the opportunity to outperform S&P 500, and a lot of people will say, well, like Warren Buffett says this, that, and the other, and I'm Warren Buffett's biggest fan, which is why so much of my allocation goes to S&P 500. But with individual stocks, since I started investing, I have way outperformed the market on average. I think I shared it on my email a couple of weeks ago. It was including S&P 500. So this is everything stock-wise. I think it was a 22.3% annualized return over the last 6 years or 7 years, and that's including years where the S&P 500 was negative. And so that was the average over those years. If I didn't have individual stocks, that wouldn't have occurred. And I don't have the best stock picks ever. My own route of doing this is I don't invest in anything that I don't feel that I understand. Even though it's 40%, I go in relatively heavy on like 6 different companies. And they're usually Amazon, Nvidia, Meta, what else do I have right now? Well, a few others anyway, but they're all kind of household names, and they're things that I only buy when they crash. So like when the Trump tariffs came in, and some of these big names went down like 30, 35, 40, 45%, it was a reaction. And whether the tariffs were going to be, turned around in, 5 days or 5 weeks or 5 years, it didn't really matter to me, because I'm not looking at this money here as money that I'm relying on to be able to pay my mortgage next month. This is money that I've allocated to grow. And so with great companies, it puts me in a position where, sure, they can have a year and a half where they're crumbling. But if they're an Amazon or they're an Nvidia or they're a Disney, then the upside is usually going to be seen. I just don't know what the time frame is going to be. It might be 2 weeks, it might be 2.5 years, but the upside is usually seen. And that, again, not financial advice, it's just the way that I do it. And this allocation, I feel, is kind of all weather. And it works for me and has worked for me for, 7 years of investing or something like that. It's a pretty huge allocation of where my income comes from on a yearly basis now, where it was, a tiny little bit 7 years ago on my tax returns. Now it's in a position where, it's probably in the region of like 20% or 25%. And that's the stuff that I sell that I actually have to pay taxes on. That's not just the entire gains of which I don't sell. So anyway, I hope this has been valuable to you. If you want me to create anything in detail here, or do any other types of videos like this around, wealth creation and not just growing coaching businesses, then let me know. I've got zero intention of coaching this in any way, shape or form, but I'll create something for the channel. And always hit like, hit subscribe, and if you're a really great human, comment down below. And otherwise, I'll see you on another video very soon, and that one will probably be about Facebook ads.